All right, let's just skip the traditional intros and jump right into it. Welcome to The Explainer. Look, if you're here, you've got a very specific, highly pragmatic goal, right? You want to learn to code in 2026, and you want to do it without wasting a single second of your time. If you've ever felt like, I don't know, the window to learn programming is already closed, or that the landscape is just way too complicated to navigate on your own, well, I need you to focus. We are cutting through all the noise right now. We're distilling real industry data into a clear, pragmatic roadmap to get you started. Okay, let's dive into this. 82%. That is a massive statistical anchor right there. Because if you think you need to spend 4 years and tens of thousands of dollars grinding through advanced calculus to get a formal computer science degree just to enter the tech field, you are entirely mistaken. That simple number completely shatters the myth that a traditional university path is the only way in. No way. 82% of professional working developers actually learned how to code using online resources, completely outside of formal education. And this isn't just some hopeful guess, you know? This data comes directly from the massive industry-leading Stack Overflow developer survey. So consider this explainer your insider's guide to the actual reality of the tech industry today. We're looking at what works right now, not what worked 20 years ago. Section 1. The CS degree myth versus online reality. So for years, these traditional barriers to entry have intimidated adults, career switchers, and busy professionals. It keeps them from even attempting to code. We've been sold this pervasive idea that coding requires some, I don't know, innate mathematical genius or a prestigious, super expensive diploma. Well, we need to dismantle that right now. Just look at the stark contrast here. On one side, we have the formal CS degree. It's expensive, it's intensely time-consuming, and honestly, heavily focused on abstract theory. But on the other side, the modern reality of online resources. It's agile, self-guided, highly effective, and deeply practical. The online route is literally built for the way adults actually learn. It focuses on immediate application, building real projects, and adapting to industry shifts in real time, rather than just relying on an outdated 4-year curriculum. Moving on to Section 2, the choice paralysis trap. Let's speed things up a bit here because we really need to talk about the actual reason most beginners fail. And spoiler alert, the biggest obstacle for someone starting out isn't the complex logic or the mathematical difficulty of coding. Nope, it's the sheer exhaustion of staring at this kind of chaos. I mean, this brilliantly illustrates the problem, doesn't it? Java, C++, Ruby, React, Angular, and that's literally just a tiny fraction. Throw in dozens of frameworks and hundreds of different online learning platforms practically begging for your monthly subscription, and it induces massive choice paralysis. You feel like you need a master's degree just to pick the tool you're going to learn. And here is the tragic result of all that decision fatigue. Most beginners quit before they ever write their first real program. It's totally understandable, and it is incredibly common. You spend, 3 weeks searching for the absolute best programming language 2026, watching endless tutorials, debating the pros and cons, ending up with 40 browser tabs open and feeling entirely stuck. Your momentum just dies in the research phase before you even begin. Stop right there. Take a deep breath. So, where do you actually start? Let's just reset our attention right now and cut all of this tension immediately. Forget the noise. Forget the hundreds of frameworks and the thousands of opinions on Reddit. We are going to simplify this entire landscape right here, right now. Section 3. The core coding concepts. I want you to take a massive sigh of relief right now because we are going to look at how all programming languages actually work under the hood. Once you understand this fundamental truth, the immense pressure of making the absolute perfect first choice completely vanishes. So the crucial point is this. The wrong first choice costs significantly less than the time you waste agonizing over the decision. Spending a month paralyzed trying to pick the ultimate language is far worse than just picking one at random and starting. Why? Because underneath the syntax, underneath the specific words you type, the foundational DNA of almost every modern programming language is practically identical. Let's be relentlessly pragmatic here. Take a look at these 4 concepts: variables, loops, functions, and conditionals. Every single language you could possibly choose teaches these exact same core ideas. A variable is just a box holding data. A loop just repeats an action. A conditional is simply an if-then decision. And a function? Just a reusable mini-program. A loop in Python does the exact same conceptual job as a loop in Java or C++. Once you learn these 4 building blocks in one language, transferring that knowledge to your second language takes a fraction of the time. You aren't marrying a language, folks. You're just learning the universal logic of machines. Let's move to section 4 and see how this builds. The golden decision rule. We are putting an end to your choice paralysis today with a singular, actionable rule. No more research, no more hesitation, just a clear path forward. You basically only have 2 choices right now. Do you want to work with artificial intelligence, analyze huge sets of data, or maybe just automate boring spreadsheet tasks at your current job? Then choose Python. On the flip side, do you want to build interactive websites, sleek web applications, or really anything that runs in a browser? Then choose JavaScript. That is it. Pick one based on that exact, simple binary right now and close all the other tabs. You literally cannot make a mistake here. You just need to make a choice. Section 5. Preparing for Part 2. All right, we've mapped out the 2026 landscape, we bypassed the CS degree myth, conquered the choice paralysis trap, and established a definitive language path without drowning in a sea of academic jargon. You have your foundation set, and you know exactly why you are picking your tool. So I want to leave you with this final question. Which path matches your 2026 goal? Are you going the Python AI route or the JavaScript web development route? Lock in your answer right now. Because in part 2 of this explainer, we are going to cover exactly which beginner projects will build real, marketable skills for your specific language, so you aren't stuck in tutorial purgatory forever. Decide your path today, and I'll see you in the next phase of the roadmap.
Welcome back to our 2026 Learn to Code Roadmap Explainer. Now, if you joined us for part 1, you know exactly what the modern coding landscape looks like today. But right now, we are standing at the absolute edge of the most critical decision you're going to make on this entire journey. Seriously, choosing the wrong language right now is literally the #1 reason beginners get completely overwhelmed and just flat out quit by month 2. So grab your notepad, get dialed in, because today we're breaking down the exact tools you need to actually build your future.
If you recall the golden rule we set up in our first explainer, the whole modern coding world essentially boils down to the single ultimate fork in the road. You gotta pick a lane. Trying to learn both right out of the gate is just a guaranteed recipe for burnout. So we're focusing strictly on Python or JavaScript. Why just these two? Well, because together, they power over 90% of the modern web and AI landscape. That makes them the absolute most valuable starting blocks you could possibly invest your time in.
Section 1. The core choice. Python versus JavaScript, head-to-head. Okay, let's dive right into this comparison and demystify these tools before you commit.
So that's a pretty stark contrast in the vibe and the learning experience between these two heavyweights. Python is incredibly famous for having this really gentle learning curve, mostly because the syntax reads almost exactly like plain English. It feels logical, it's straightforward, and hey, fun fact, it was actually named after the British comedy troupe Monty Python, not the snake, which honestly tells you a lot about the creator's philosophy. They wanted coding to be fun. JavaScript, on the other hand, well, it was famously prototyped in just 10 days back in the 90s, so it might look a little more complex at first glance, but it offers something incredibly powerful: instant visual feedback. Because JavaScript runs natively right there in your web browser, you can write a line of code, hit run, and boom, see the visual results immediately. So it's really a choice between readable simplicity and immediate gratification.
And those unique traits perfectly dictate exactly what each language is built to do in the real world. Python, with its super clean logic and this absolutely massive ecosystem of math libraries, dominates the heavy lifting. We're talking data, artificial intelligence, complex automation, and deep backend system processes. JavaScript, however, is the undisputed king of front-end development, full-stack roles, and interactive web apps. Why? Because every single web browser on the planet, from Chrome on your laptop to Safari on your phone, natively speaks JavaScript. If it lives on the web and it moves, JavaScript is driving the bus.
But hold up, before you just pick the one that sounds the coolest, I want you to stop for a second. Learning to code is a massive, life-altering commitment. We need to step away from the technical jargon for a minute, look in the mirror, and get real about your true motivations. Which brings us to Section 2, the mirror. The 3 real reasons people learn to code. Let's see how this builds into 3 highly specific paths based on your actual goals. Based on the landscape right now, every single learner in the US in 2026 falls squarely into one of 3 distinct buckets. Number 1, the career switch. Number 2, the side business and MVP. Or number 3, the job requirements and automation. We're going to break down the exact tech stack for each, but listen to me on this. Trying to walk all 3 of these paths at once is the fastest possible route to failure. You need to pick your primary mission right now.
Let's look at Path 1,
If your primary goal is a total career switch into the tech industry, specifically gunning for those highly sought-after front developer roles, your path is set in stone. JavaScript is absolutely mandatory, but you can't just learn it in a vacuum. You've got to learn it alongside HTML and CSS. Think of it like a house. HTML is the skeleton that gives the page its structure. CSS is the paint job that makes it look beautiful, and JavaScript is the electricity and the brains making everything actually interact with the user. Without that specific trio, a front-end career switch simply isn't happening.
Now, path 2. This is for the entrepreneurs. If you're trying to build a side business or launch a minimum viable product, meaning the absolute simplest, stripped-down version of your app just to test an idea, you actually have some flexibility here. You can choose either Python or JavaScript. Both are totally capable. But here is the catch. Whichever one you pick, you absolutely must pair it with backend fundamentals. What does that mean? It means you have to understand how to securely store user data in a database and how to run a server behind the scenes so your app actually works out there in the wild.
And finally, path 3. Let's say you have no desire to become a full-time software engineer. You just want to automate those tedious, mind-numbing workflows at your desk job, or maybe hit a specific technical requirement for a promotion. If that's you, your path is super streamlined. Python alone is your answer. Just a few months of studying Python, and you can write scripts that do all your boring spreadsheet work automatically while you go grab a coffee. It is entirely sufficient to make you incredibly dangerous and highly efficient in the workplace.
So, here is the absolutely crucial takeaway. Write down your specific reason to act as your anchor for the harder weeks ahead. Seriously, I want you to take this to heart. Actually, grab a pen and paper right now. Are you path 1, 2, or 3? Documenting this exact motivation is critical. Because when the learning gets genuinely tough, and trust me, there are going to be some really hard weeks ahead, you need a concrete physical reminder of exactly why you started and what your finish line looks like. Section 3, Preparing for What's Next, the Road to Mastery. Now that you've looked in the mirror, chosen your path, and you know exactly which language you're committing to, we need to shift gears. We need to prepare for the actual day-to-day grind required to reach mastery.
And that brings us to the million-dollar question. What is the realistic learning timeline, and what project-based approach actually works in 2026? Like, how long is this realistically going to take, and what should you actually be building? Well, in part 3 of our Explainer series, we are going to map out that exact timeline for you. Until then, hold on to that written goal, commit to your language, and ask yourself one final thing. Are you going to spend the next 5 years just consuming the internet, or are you finally ready to build it?